A Cuban refugee named Tony Montana arrives in Miami with nothing but ambition, which major players soon recognize. Tony works hard, makes the right moves, and gets what he believes is coming to him, never realizing a moment of kindness might undo everything. In May 1980, Fidel Castro opens the harbor at Mariel, Cuba, and within 72 hours, 3,000 U.S. boats head for Cuba. However, of the 125,000 refugees that landed in the U.S., 25,000 had criminal records. An ambitious man named Antonio Tony Montana and his friends Manny Rivera, Angel, and Chichi arrive in Miami as part of the Mariel boat lift. However, Tony fails his immigration interview as a result of the big scar on his face and his coded tattoo, which reveal that he used to be an assassin in Cuba.
This was when I was a kid, you know? You should see the other kid.
Hence, both Tony and Manny, who also has a criminal history, are sent to a detention center in North Miami.
Told him when you told me to tell him. Told me when I was in sanitation.
A month later, Manny is informed that a rich man named Frank Lopez wants a political prisoner named Emilio Rebenga, who has just arrived at the detention center, killed in exchange for a green card and a job in Miami, and excitedly shares the news with Tony, who gladly accepts the assignment.
I kill a communist for fun, but for a green card.
On August 11, 1980, hundreds of Cubans start a riot in the detention center, attacking guards and causing absolute chaos. Using this as a distraction, Tony stabs Emilio to death with Manny's help. Immediately after, Tony and Manny are released from the center, obtain their green cards, and secure a dishwasher job at a small restaurant, which they dislike. A few weeks later, as their patience starts to run out, Frank sends his right-hand man, Omar Suarez, who offers them a job moving marijuana. However, Tony shocks everyone when he turns down the job for its low pay and demands to be given a job better suited for his time and skill set.
You're not gonna do that to nobody. Nah, man, you can't do that, man.
Annoyed, Omar then orders the duo to meet with some Colombian drug dealers at a local motel and buy cocaine. On the day of the deal, Tony and Manny take their friends to the motel. Manny and Chichi stay in the car guarding the money and waiting to offer backup, while Tony and Angel go inside to purchase the cocaine. Then after a few minutes, the Colombians ambush Tony and Angel and attempt to rob them.
Front face.
When Tony refuses to reveal the location of the money, the Colombian boss drags Angel to the bathroom and brutally dismembers him with a chainsaw. What makes this quite terrifying is that this world Al Pacino, as Tony steps into, isn't exaggerated and is inspired by true events that took place during Miami's cocaine war era. Hence, at the early screenings, audiences walked out on the chainsaw scene as it was too violent. Despite being heartbroken by Angel's traumatic death, Tony keeps his emotions in check, refuses to give up any information, and prepares to accept his fate. Luckily, Manny, who's lost track of time, flirting with some women on the beach, realizes that he hasn't heard from Tony in a while, and together with Chichi, rushes to the motel, comes to Tony's rescue, and disrupts the Colombians. All hell breaks loose as both sides try to kill the other. Then during the ruckus, the Colombian boss swiftly escapes the motel and runs onto the street. Furious, Tony chases him and fatally shoots him. Chichi helps the injured Manny to the car, and the trio speeds away. Then Tony calls Omar to inform him of the situation, assures him that both the money and the cocaine are safe, and hoping to grasp at the chance to meet and impress the boss, negotiates to personally hand them over to Frank. A few days later, Omar takes Manny and Tony to Frank's mansion to introduce them, and Frank is instantly impressed by Tony's bold and go-getter attitude.
Scotch, gin, rum. What do you like?
Gin is fine.
Then as the men prepare to go out for dinner, Tony is introduced to Frank's wife, Elvira Hancock, and instantly falls in love with her. Then the group goes to a popular club for dinner, where Frank explains the drug trade to Tony, shows him the major players, and gives him some tips on how to handle himself. In the next 3 months, Manny and Tony do well in Frank's organization and get lucrative deals. In their downtime, Tony carefully analyzes his business and strategically maps out his next moves, while Manny has fun with different women and tries to impress many more. One night, Tony visits his mother, Georgina, and his sister, Gina, at their small house, where he's welcomed warmly. However, a few hours into his visit, Tony gives Georgina a wad of cash as a gift. Georgina becomes furious and refuses to accept the gift, as she doesn't approve of his criminal lifestyle. Then, despite Gina's plea to calm down, Georgina throws Tony out of the house. As he drives away with Manny, Tony warns his womanizer best friend, who admires Gina's beauty, to stay away from his sister. A few weeks later, on behalf of Frank, Omar and Tony travel to Cochabamba, Bolivia, to do a one-time drug deal with a powerful drug lord named Alejandro Sosa, who expresses his wish to negotiate a long-term deal with Frank and promises to produce and supply large amounts of cocaine constantly. Seeing the benefits of the proposal, Tony starts to negotiate with Alejandro on behalf of his boss, which annoys Omar, who believes Frank is the only one who can make such big decisions. Then, after dining at Alejandro's luxurious mansion, Omar prepares to head back to the US and discuss the matter with Frank. Alejandro sets up his helicopter and orders his men to escort Omar while asking Tony to stay back and continue their discussions. A few minutes after Omar's departure, Alejandro informs Tony that his men have figured out that Omar is a police informant and shows him his fate. Tony then returns to Miami and meets with Frank, who is obviously frustrated about Omar's death and the new deal Tony has agreed to, without asking for his approval. He also shares his concern about how difficult it will be to distribute such large amounts of cocaine without angering their competitors and attracting unwanted attention to themselves. All these reasons fall on deaf ears, and Tony stands his ground and announces that it's time to make big moves and expand his business, and shares his decision to go ahead with the lucrative deal on his own. As a result, Tony and Frank sever their business relationship.
Chicas, champagne, flash.
Then Tony approaches Elvira, tells her Frank won't last in the business, and boldly informs her that he wants to marry her and start a family with her. He then gives her time to think about it and make her choice. One night, a corrupt narcotics detective on Frank's payroll named Mel Bernstein approaches Tony at a club, reveals that he knows about the murders Tony has committed so far, and, using them as leverage, requests to be paid a hefty monthly salary to provide him protection from both the law and his competitors. Backed into a corner, Tony agrees to Mel's demands. Later that night, Tony sees Gina dancing with a man and becomes furious. Then, as he monitors her movements from afar, he sees her going to the bathroom with her date, follows her, and finds her doing drugs. Then Tony sees red and attacks them both. Manny calms Tony down, comforts the hysterical Gina, and takes her home. Heeding Tony's warning, Manny hides his strong feelings for Gina and calms her down, explaining that her brother is just looking out for her. Later that night, while Tony stays back alone at the club, thinking over everything, a couple of assassins come out of nowhere, start shooting at him, and destroy the club. Tony reacts quickly, takes cover, and takes the assassins out. Later, Tony and Manny go to Frank's office and find Frank in a meeting with Mel. Tony interrupts this meeting and accuses the duo of sending the assassins after him. After a lengthy back and forth, Frank finally admits he was behind the hit.
All right, Tony. I was the one.
Then, sensing how angry Tony is, Frank apologizes to him profusely, offers him millions of dollars as a token of apology, and even offers him Elvira so that he can give him a second chance. Desperate to survive the ordeal, Frank grovels at Tony's feet, begging him to spare his life, to no avail. On Tony's orders, Manny kills Frank.
No, 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 no!
Then Tony shoots and kills Mel. Tony then offers Frank's bodyguard, Ernie, a job. Then he heads to Elvira, wakes her up, and convinces her to pack her stuff and go with him. Immediately after, Tony makes bold decisions and becomes the distributor of Alejandro's product. In the following months, money just starts to rain for Tony, with which he builds an empire. He marries Elvira in a lavish wedding, buys a luxurious mansion, and a hair salon for Gina. Tony keeps rolling in money and even makes more than he can launder. A couple of years later, Tony is set up in an FBI sting operation, is caught and charged with tax evasion and money laundering.
How do I know you guys are cops, huh?
What's I say, asshole?
Soon, Tony is released on bond, and despite his lawyer's best efforts, he is informed that he will be imprisoned for 3 years, as there is too much evidence against him. Alejandro learns of Tony's predicament, invites him to his mansion, and introduces him to high-ranking officials. Then Alejandro offers to keep Tony out of prison, using his connection with the officials, and in exchange asks him to help his henchman, Alberto, who doesn't know his way around the US, kill a journalist about to expose him. A few days later, at dinner with Manny and Elvira, Tony drunkenly blames Manny for his arrest and insults Elvira for her passive lifestyle, and even calls her infertile. This sets Elvira off, who calls Tony out for his criminal lifestyle and questions the type of husband he is. The couple causes a scene as they get into a fight, and after announcing that she's leaving Tony, Elvira storms out.
Let her go, man.
Then Tony leaves Manny in charge of the business and travels to New York with Alberto and Ernie to kill the journalist. There, the group waits in the car as Alberto discreetly puts a radio-controlled bomb under the journalist's car. The group waits until the journalist exits his apartment, and Tony is utterly shocked to see him entering his car with his wife and 2 children. Alberto plays down this fact and asks Tony to follow the journalist until he reaches the UN office, so that he can remotely detonate the bomb there to send a message. Unable to kill a woman and 2 young children, Tony shoots and kills Alberto instead.
I told you, man! I told you! No f***ing kids!
Tony returns home and is annoyed that no one has seen Manny for a few days. Then, as Tony gets high on cocaine, a panicked Georgina calls to inform him that Gina has been missing and begs him to help her. Tony then receives a call from an angry Alejandro, who berates him for failing and furiously tells him that the journalist has already delivered the incriminating expose on him and has been taken to witness protection following the discovery of the bomb. Alejandro then declares war on Tony. Tony pushes this aside, rushes to his mother's house to find out more about his sister's disappearance, and learns that Gina has been spotted at a luxurious mansion a few miles away. Tony rushes to the location with his henchmen, including Ernie, knocks on the door, and is shocked to see Manny open the door for him. As Tony tries to process this, he sees Gina from inside, loses his mind in anger, and fatally shoots his best friend. Destroyed by grief, Gina tearfully tells her brother that she and Manny had just gotten married and were waiting to surprise him. High on cocaine and traumatized by the whole ordeal, Tony stands frozen until his men come and rush him and a hysterical Gina off the scene. Then, as Ernie drives the group back home, Alejandro's men discreetly enter the mansion. Despite being aware of the looming war from Alejandro and wanting to prepare, Tony stays paralyzed by killing his childhood friend Manny. Soon, Alejandro's men infiltrate the mansion's compound and overwhelm Tony's security team. They then make their way into the mansion. Meanwhile, a grief-stricken Gina goes to Tony's office, accuses him of ruining her happiness, and shoots at him.
I'm all yours now.
Gina.
However, soon an assassin jumps through the window and murders her. Tony then avenges his sister's death. As the assassins overwhelm the mansion and reach his office, Tony retaliates.
Say hello to my little friend!
Tony then single-handedly kills many of his assassins. Tony withstands the many shots and manages to kill and disarm many of his enemies. However, soon the assassin's boss sneaks up on him, shoots him from behind, and kills him. And with that, the story ends. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more of the best film recaps.